no names. He's not here to defend himself and tell us he's doing everything right. But he's right in the sense that we do leak semaphores, but not at the rate he leaks. And it's really hard to do it. It's probably running here right now. It's in the background. I think I got it set to start up automatically. And there's another one called monitor threads, which we sort of used to help Peter Moylan find some of the thread leak problems. Because the threads are supposed to go away when you're done with them. You know, some live forever, but here that I forgot to add it to the list, called SID2. And they all used a DOS query sysstate API, and which basically gives you gobs of data about a static snapshot of what's going on in the system, what's loaded, what's used in memory, threads, this and that. And you can just slice and dice it to get you the information you need. Of course, you actually have to know what you're looking for, but it's easy to use, and it's just a handy tool. Then there's the venerable top, which has a new release for those of you who haven't been paying attention. Yeah, Paul finally decided he wanted to put hard kill in there.
Oh.
So if you remember to use that kill before the other kill, you might be able to kill some apps that used to be unkillable.
Cool. Wait, before.
Well, here's the problem. If you use a normal kill, the exit list runs.
Right.
And of course, once you're stuck in the exit list, you aren't leaving.
Yeah, that's right.
In Spanish.
One way in, no way out. Yeah. Well, actually, it just bypasses it.
Oh.
It's just another form of kill that says don't run the exit list.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, I haven't really looked to see how he does it. I don't know if there's a DOS API for it or if it's something that's in DOS.sys. There's an IOCTL that does it somewhere. Because again, not documented. But most of us know about it, right? Because CAT-H has it too. If you use CAT-H's and boot it up.
I think it's even a device, device helper command.
Yeah. Okay. So you use CAT-H.
Yeah, and you list.
Oh.
You've got the kill and the hard kill.
Right, right.
But
Well, that's been there for a long time.
pardon?
That's been there.
Oh yeah,
For
but it hasn't
years.
been in top. And top is more accessible to most people because it's a straight command line app. It's not pop up or anything like that.
But, I mean, that comes up in top if you,
No.
no?
Top,
No,
top is
no,
part
top
of the
looks
same
like,
menu.
you're thinking of something else. Top looks like
This
this.
is top, yeah.
No, it's not top.
Wasn't that top?
No.
Oh, that
Oh.
is
Oh, so top is just that one
Yeah,
small
this is
part of it.
2.12.
Yeah,
Just
just
little
that
one.
one.
I see,
Now, what was it that had the hard kill in it?
I see. I didn't
And I forget. Now, I'm not even, the thing I have to look at is this kill this is probably still the regular kill.
Thank you.
Paul has a P kill.
Okay.
That's distributed with top, and you probably put the option to do the hard kill there, which means you need some other way to run it. But I don't have anything I want to show right now.
Well, what'll happen if this is the new one, you hit kill right here, it'll
Does
let
it
you.
ask?
It don't-
Oh, okay, I haven't looked yet. I haven't tested. Good. Okay, so he did put it here and a P kill.
Yeah.
Good, good.
But is this a hot kill, this kill? Because
It-
most of the time it doesn't work for me.
Well,
so-
it
Well,
is
no,
now.
The only reason it doesn't is because you got problems that it can't kill. It kills for me all the time because for one reason or another, I am lucky enough that I very rarely get things hanging in the exit list. It's one of these educational things. I know what I do that will cause things to hang in the exit list, and I avoid doing them automatically. By this, not 100%, I'll get, because there are a couple, I do have to reboot every 4 or 5 days or something, I do something like that. But if I'm a good boy, I can make it about 2 weeks before, the system, I just do things that are too hard. And the PM and the W clear themselves out. But that's because I'm doing development and stuff like that. If you're just a desktop user, an OS2 box should stay powered on for months. Just web browsing and stuff like that. That stuff doesn't hang in the exit list. Flash will, but just browsing. And that'll go away eventually. But the problem with that, of course, is like as I mentioned, you can't hard kill after the fact. And there's actually more kill forms than that, but no one really knows about them unless you use Stardoc's Process Commander.
Or, I used to use a tool from Perez.
Yeah, he had a couple extras too, but
Yeah.
he didn't have as many as Process Commander though.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if I can bring this thing up for you. What do I do with it? It should be here. Forgot to add it to the menu. I have it on the menu of the other system, where I can bring up Process Commander full screen from here, which makes sense because when you're here, you're running critical priority, which means you can actually run. Yeah, that's something I had Blake do many, many years ago. When he first implemented the thing, he didn't run this critical.
Oh, wow.
They try to pop it up and
So you
something's
just wait
chewing up,
and wait
it
and
wouldn't
wait.
come up,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But now we run it critical, and the other, and that also means when you run top of here, top is running critical too. So it doesn't have problems with the performance, but
Wasn't there a device driver we could load for hard kills?
yeah, there's, I think SPD Help has one, there's a couple of them like that. But
Well, there was an accessory thing to WatchCat that you could get. You had to pay extra for it, I think, but it would allow you to use something like a game controller or a switch that you would
yeah,
connect to the
yeah,
serial
those
port.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, and that was effective, but, you know, when were you ever set up for that? I tried it a couple of times and it worked, but it was
Oh, it'll
Yeah,
work.
Unless you're in a debugging mode with RS-232.
a real hassle. I don't really sit around with controller.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is out there, and you know, it's still there and it still works on some systems. And actually, Process Commander is supposedly a successor to that, but they'll never really admit to it. Because I think they had a falling out during the development process. And let's see, for us developer types, we like our debuggers. Because there are times when you just simply have to step through the code because we're not smart enough to see what it's really doing without watching it do it. Yeah, exactly. And the lowest level, we've got the kernel debugger. And the big problem we have with the kernel debugger is there's only two interfaces to it. One is the serial port and the other is network. And the network only runs once the network's up. So, but however, for certain types of debugging, it's fine. In other words, let's say you have a USB driver that you're debugging and it's booting and all that sort of stuff, but it has performance issues. You can use network debugging, assuming you don't have a USB attached network card to debug that. Now, what the rest of the world has these days for kernel debugging is they have a very expensive USB cable that plugs into EHCI debug port. And they run the kernel debugger that way. Every now and then, David and I talk about what would it take to make that work. It's hard to know, you know, it's one of those, because the serial interface really isn't using interrupts, it's polls. So, you know, it seems like you should be able to patch in there fairly easily.
I might have a resource that might understand that.
What, the cable itself?
No, the code. Not for our OS, but
Yeah, but see, the other OSs are easy. Code's there. Yeah, the biggest problem we have is that, you know, source code is not there, really. You know, there's Leap 4.4 code, but it's not the same stuff as we're running. Now, anybody who's looked at it that knows what code looks like knows it's not even close to the SMP code. Now, it's a guide in the sense that, yeah, you know what they name things and you know what they intended to do. But a lot of times it's just as easy to kernel debug the thing and watch the code and understand what it does. Because most of the time, the use of the meaning of the data is fairly obvious from what you're doing. Not always, but you know. The other one, which is a fairly accessible debugger to use, is OpenWatcom. Good source level debugging for GUI apps and VIO apps. It has some problem with PM apps, but those you can solve by doing remote debug. basically you run it over a TCP/IP link where you have a host running the debugger and then you're not running the application under test. And that solves all the GUI problems. It has some problems breaking in to running apps, but usually you can work around them, especially if you're running remote because you can get in other ways there. Then there's the visual age debuggers, which you've got visual age, you've got visual age. One of the things we can't do yet with the Open Watcom debugger is debug applications that are used that have IBM debug data. Open Watcom supports we can generate the debug data, but I've never gone through and done the testing required to make sure that we can actually use that debug data in Open Watcom. It's doable because that's all plug-in stuff. But it's just, and Nuke put the code in there, but I didn't test it out after I converted the patch. I don't really know how much we made work and how much was just working process for him. Because he did the patches for debug data for the same reason I did, so that you could use the visual age debugger to debug Mozilla. Then there's the ICAP debugger. The ICAP debugger is nice because it gives you the ability to source level debug device drivers. That Lars uses it quite a bit. And over a network, it's not so great over a serial interface, but over a network interface, it performs very nicely. It was essential. I believe that it was really developed for video device driver, for video driver development. Because they're DLLs, they're running Ring 3, and their performance problems can easily be analyzed once you have the network up and running.
Is there a reason that went with adding the back debug code to the Watcom linker rather than just using the Watcom debug in just GCC? Too hard to add to the GCC, or?
I never really asked that question. I thought about it, but I really thought, you could have just used Workday to use Watcom debugger. But it may have been that they were having trouble with the Watcom debugger and they just never told me. It was one of the things where I have a tendency sometimes when somebody asks me to do something, I don't always give them all the alternatives. And it was something I wanted to do anyhow, because I knew it was sort of, we needed to do it because we needed to use W-Link.
What is, when you do GCC coding, what is the debugging situation there? Does that write?
With GCC, if you use W-Link, you can use Visual Age Debugger for it. Because we will generate IBM debug data for your GCC app.
That's a command line switch? Or no, W-Link is a linker. Okay.
Yeah, it's a link,
Okay.
but you still have to tell W-Link at some point in time to generate IBM debug data as opposed to Dwarf or anything like that.
And does it come, what about like GDB, those Linux style tools?
We haven't had a good GDB port since the EMX days.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be nice because the problem is though GDB alone is really not quite the good solution. You need a GDB with like a Qt wrapper, which is how they do for the rest of the world. And maybe when we get a good Qt, we'll actually be able to do that. Because there's no real reason that we can't implement GDB. The DOS debug interface is good enough to do that stuff.
Just a question. So the newer GCC compilers generate IBM type debugging for?
Not the new one, the old one. It's been doing that for many, many years.
I thought they generated something that some other debugging for type.
Nope. ZOMF has been doing IBM debug data forever. As long as ZOMF has probably been around 30 years life. No, not like that. But it's been around for a while. Ever since 321, 322, ZDLL, ZOMF.
So in the past, you could always debug
Well, that's
GCC
how
generate.
not only in the past, that's how you could do it, that's how we did it. Because otherwise you'd be doing printf debugging, and that's no fun.
And another question is all those -Z parameters for GCC, where are those documented?
They're documented in the readmes.
Or they come with the compiler?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have some additional documentation. I don't know how much of it I've actually posted or not, but you know, I tend to collect and organize in ways that work for me and it might work for other people. And then somebody mentioned disassemblers. Basically, it's there. PMDF also has a disassembler in it. And one of the ones I use a lot for when I need to analyze code that I don't have source for is IDA. And it's pretty handy. I actually still, to this day, use the ancient DOS 3-something X freeware version. And there's one or two instructions that won't disassemble properly, but typically it's like some of the float saves and things like that. And what I could use is I could go get the Windows version if I actually had a Windows installed and run the last version, which would do that, which would work fine too. But this thing is perfectly capable of fully disassembling the compiler. You won't, obviously, because the compiler has a lot of data that looks like code, you won't get anything usable right out of the box because it just doesn't have no way of knowing. But IDE is pretty good. IDE has always been pretty smart. But the disassemblers I find are the most intelligent. It does the right things most of the time. You can confuse it, but once you go fix the parts that confused it, then it sort of picks up and goes, and not a problem. There's certain, like, it has a terrible time with modular, since we mentioned modular. Because modular does a lot of jump tables where the jump tables are in line in the code. Couldn't put it in the constant D group, you know. So it's little things like that, you know. I think, of course, the other thing modular does too is they don't know what a string is. So if you get short strings, they use move statements to build the sucker up. You try finding those things in the code.
Gotta see what you're looking at next.
And you wonder why that doesn't work. Okay. Well, final thoughts. Well, I mentioned this right in the front, but I'll mention it again. Always do debugging handbook. It's just plain handy. You know, it's got, in IBM's way, they actually document all the system tables. Unfortunately, the report layout, the SOP stuff is not accurate, but if anybody needs them, I have some of them.
That was a red book?
Yeah, that was a red book in its day and age.
So you can probably still get it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have all those really opens are still around.
Yeah, but now you can even get it in PDF format.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's,
what I mean,
I think it's still there in the Red Books library. I haven't
They don't seem to remove stuff.
No.
No. Well, like I always tell people, the internet never forgets, even wrong stuff.
Except in Europe.
Yeah, right.
Really? What's the rule there? They have-
Google, yeah.
They have a new rule.
They got to delete it
It's on
after
the
2
back
years?
up, yeah.
The debugging handbook is on CD1.
It's in the toolkit, so it's probably in the second CD.
Okay.
And it's also, you'll find it if you Google for it. There's a bunch of people have it in their repositories. You just need to give it the right name. And then you get places to go look for my junk. And it's like, we keep whining here, try to develop a community. Do something. We don't even care if it's right or wrong, just do something. So, am I out of time?
Are you ready? You're out.
I'm done.
You're
Unless-
done.
When do you want me to start?
You ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You're looking at me.
I want to thank you, Steve, for swapping positions to give Andy time to get things straightened out.
We think. Straighten out.
Normally, we're at what would be the final time for the day. I would like to have Andy complete the presentation today, and we just go a little bit late for
dinner?
For dinner. It doesn't start till 5:30, so somewhere between 5:30 and 6, we could probably be headed in to eat, as long as you don't ask Andy too many hard questions.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the little tool I was mentioning about, one of the ones. So, see these guys? Come on, we don't do that. Oh, well.
Well, asking hard questions won't be an issue anyway,
Up
but
here.
I can't answer.
See these
Those
stems?
go faster.
As far as I'm concerned, these guys should have been closed. Now, I think there's like a 5-minute or a 10-minute timer there that eventually they'll close, because those got open when I did a very roundabout thing. I still use Z-Tree Bold as a sort of a program starter file manager where the names are short and all that sort of stuff. Plus it runs a bunch of macros and does standard things because it just does things right. I would use FM2, but FM2 always takes me more work. And unfortunately, FMT, which is faster because it's more VIO and all that, is a god-awful command set. Everything's function keys, which no one's going to remember unless you use it every 5 minutes. And I've never fixed it. And also the problem with FMT, which we sort of fixed in FM2 and FM2 Lite, is it doesn't do dual windows. The thing that made C2 Bold famous is when they put the split windows in there, or X-Tree Bold. Because that's, for 90% of what you need, a from and a to does everything just what you need. But I use Z-Tree Bold to start up a rec script, which passed the URL, or the file name, which got turned it into a file name URL, to a Mozilla starter script, which figures out which version of Mozilla I have running, and passes it along with the proper parameters so you don't get any stupid errors, like trying to open the log twice and all that sort of stuff. And then all these sessions die. But not everything goes away. Our friends, the semaphores are still open and owned by the PM shell, which is not good. You do that a lot, you will eventually run out of your 65,000 semaphores. Now, this thing actually, and if I actually go look at those semaphores, or force a process dump and go look at the semaphores, yeah, it's doing a real, it's waiting for something to happen. It's waiting for an event, and the event's just not going to happen. Probably because whoever is expecting to post it is long gone. Get out of here so everybody doesn't die of hunger. Why did I do that? Oh, no. No need to. Oh, yeah, no, actually, I did need to do it because I can't get my screen back. This thing won't switch back. The one downside, the T6 is a nice box, but that's the one negative it has. Power? Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, catch me when someone else is not speaking.